Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the We Know the Traitors podcast over here on RHAP. I'm your host, the Duke of Deception, Pooya Vakili, here to interview someone who I genuinely felt like your journey was just beginning on the show, and I'm very sad to be talking to you right now, but delighted at the same time. Bob Harper is here with us. Bob, how are you doing at this hour?
I'm doing great, even though I got murdered. I came back from the grave to come talk to you.
And listen, blessed am I to get that opportunity. Bob, your story on the show, I feel like there was a lot that was going on. I feel like we saw you in a couple clashes. We saw you accuse some people, but let's start at the end here with your last remarks at the round table
Mhm.
towards Rob. You put forth this case. You said, "Listen, I'm a big fan. I know what you're capable of, and this is exactly what you'd be capable of." What was it about Rob that made you feel in the moment that you got to say something?
Rob is the kind of person, he is very type A, he is very alpha. And Rob did not get put into the game in the very beginning. So he really had a point to prove. He was angry. You could tell, I could feel it from him. And so when he was made a traitor, the one thing that makes total sense is for this guy to be like this. I am the master of these games, and let me show you why. And took out a fellow traitor from the jump. And I'm sitting back, and he was so, because he was sitting right beside me in the round table. He
Hmm.
was so confident. And the only way that you can be that confident is that if you know something that none of us know. And when he came for Bob, which is also a type A person, I'm sure that they would not go do well together in the turret. And so Rob was like this, you know what? I'm taking you out and I'm taking you out right now. It was it was great television, but like it was also exactly what I suspected. I was like, dude, you're a traitor.
And so after that roundtable is said and done, are you feeling concerned about getting murdered? Because I feel like typically, if you're accusing someone who's a traitor, you can somewhat rest easy knowing, well, they're not going to kill me. That'd be too obvious.
That's exactly what I said.
Oh.
If I could have done anything differently at that point, because we were all gunning for Nikki, because we all stupidly, we all were convinced that she was a traitor. So we all voted for it. But like at that moment, I wish that I would have just written Rob's name down because it would have been harder for him to murder me. And it's one of those like shoulda, coulda, woulda moments. But before that, I never really felt like I needed a shield, because I was like, I'm doing well. I've got people trusting me. I was what you don't see a lot. I was very much the voice of reason at the round tables. People came to me, people trusted me. And so for me to write Rob's name down could have saved me. But I remember leaving that night and thought, oh God, I could be getting murdered tonight. And sure enough, I was murdered.
And we saw the next morning how devastated your castmates were to see that you were the one to departure there. Bob, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is some of your thoughts on the other survivors that were on this cast. Now, we saw you and Tony butt heads. What was it about you and Tony that went the way it did?
Tony's crazy. Let's just let's call it for what it is. Like I remember watching Tony climbing trees and looking. I remember thinking like every time I walked into any room in the castle, I'm like looking, not only looking around, but like looking up and down to see if Tony's like hidden under. So I know how Tony plays a game, and he was so all over the place. And I said that you're either a traitor or you're a really bad faithful. And Dolores made that comment
Yeah.
in last night's episode because that's what I said. I was like, either you're a traitor or you're really bad faithful, and he's someone that I just couldn't trust. And it was when we did that mission where it was at the fun house where Dolores and I really screwed it all up because I'm colorblind, which they never said that, by the way. I mean,
Oh.
I'm colorblind as I'm in all gray and there's no color in my house. Um, Tony was just like, being so like cool about everything. It's just like, no, no, because I was going to go first because no one wanted to go first. And even Bob the drag queen was just saying, no, we need other people. And that's when I looked at Tony, I was like, why don't you? And he was like, I don't care. And that's when you see me walking up. I mean, I literally walked up to him. I was like, do it, have some balls and do it first. And that pissed him off, which I didn't care because I'm not intimidated by him. I'm not going to be like, I'm not going to be intimidated or bullied by, uh, someone like Tony or Rob for that matter.
There are another two traitors on this cast that we've yet to talk about, but let's start with the one that we heard some of your thoughts and impressions of in Carolyn. You very much were like, I don't think Carolyn knows what's going on in this game. So how surprised were you when you found out Carolyn was a traitor?
My exact words were, the girl's batshit. I
Mm,
mean, that's
yes.
what I said, and she got really pissed by that. And I was just like, and I apologize, but like, but she's volatile. She's got such an energy about her where I thought, could she even handle being a traitor? Because there's so much heavy lifting to do. But now that I'm watching it as a viewer, getting to see the things that I didn't get to see shooting, I'm like, I am just enthralled by what she's doing. In last night's episode, when she voted for Danielle, like I wasn't there for that. And so I literally was like, holy shit, this is good. Because the way that Carolyn plays, if you wrong her or if you cross a line with Carolyn, there's no going back. Like
Right.
you can do whatever, you can say whatever, but there's no going back with Carolyn. And when they show the reveal of me finding out about Carolyn, I'm surprised people didn't hear me in the United States from Scotland because I screamed so loud.
And how was it finding out Danielle was another traitor as well?
I was pissed about that because I really trusted Danielle.
Ooh.
I really did. Like I didn't see I didn't see it so clearly in that one mission with the riddles. Um, but Danielle was someone that I was close with in the house, and she was so emotional. And at one point, I was like, "There's no way she could be a traitor because she's just too emotional." But you know what? Fucking wrong, man. Wrong.
Who were your strongest connections in the house? Who did you feel closest to?
Well, Sierra, I love Sierra, and I was with her last time we were watching. I was like, "Bitch, all I gotta say is that you better be giving me tears when you find out that I was murdered." I got tears, and she said she was going to burn the house down if I didn't walk in, which I love. So I love her. Dolores is my ride or die to this day. Dolores is my girl. I love her. She is one of the most loyal people I've ever met in my entire life. I would have never written Dolores's name down, no matter what.
Who were you familiar with of the cast coming into the castle?
Coming in, with a friendship or people that I knew just from watching them on their shows.
I'll take either. I'll take whichever ones you feel like were like ended up mattering for your game.
Well, I think it mattered for the game, and even Bob the drag queen came up to me at one point in the first episode uh, and said, "Bob, you know too much. You got to hold back." Because I got out, and of course, I knew who Bob the drag queen was, but I knew Jeremy, Tony, Carolyn. I knew the Big Brother Brittany people, like all of and Danielle. Like I knew all the gamers from watching them, and I just thought, wait, I wonder how they're going to play because I've seen how ruthless they play on that, but maybe it's going to be different. And man, did I learn quickly that you do not want to, I don't know if I can curse on here.
Say what you want. I love it.
You do not want to fuck with those gamers. Jesus. They are like it's constant. And if you ever have the opportunity to play this game, it is 24/7. It's on camera, it's off camera, every single thing you are watching. And I mean, it's exhausting.
It looks it. I've had interviews with former players of these shows, and they say Traitors is harder because of the fact that you are going off of no information. There's
Yep.
barely any sleep. You're one half of the time you're hoping to not get murdered. So I can only imagine what it feels like to be there. It feels easy talking about it, but definitely looks difficult living it.
Yeah, and the Survivor people were like, "You should really do Survivor." And I was like, "No fucking way would I ever do Survivor." I was like, "This, I am too old for all that shit. I couldn't like, I could not, I couldn't go out in the ocean and poop. You know what I mean? I like,
Your
I need
luxury, you need your
cleanliness.
comfort.
Like those people, like they get so dirty and stinky on that. That would be real hard for me."
You and I both. I don't think I could hack it either, honestly. I do not think that's possible for me. What was your experience with the Traitors before you started playing the game, Bob? Were you a fan? Had you been watching?
I I was a huge fan of the show. One of my really good friends, his name is Brian. Brian's like, "You need to watch this show, Traitors." And I actually knew. I'm friends with Reza. Reza did season one
Yes.
of Traitors, and like I remember him fly because I live in New York City, and he had flown in after he got eliminated in the first episode, and he was like, "I just did this show. It's called Traitors," and he had a bad taste in his mouth about it. And when he told me about it, I was like, "Oh wow," because I would never. I always thought I would never do any of these kind of shows, but when I started I watched season two first, and I was like, I loved Alan. I loved the macabre of it. Like, I love give me anything dark, gothicy, murder, like, all that. Like, I love that kind of stuff. And so I was a big fan of the show and thought, you know what? I could maybe do that.
Well, and you did. And you did, and you outlasted Reza, who I love. He's, a fellow Persian, so I love him, but you did outlast him. No, it was absolutely fun to watch you play, Bob. I had been familiar with your work. I had watched a couple of seasons of The Biggest Loser back when I lived in Dubai, but I didn't know what to expect. And we did these podcast series where we talked through every cast member. And from Survivor 45, Brandon Donlin, he was the expert to talk about you. He had met you before, and he said nothing but good things. And I'm so happy we got you on the show because I feel like I got to learn a lot more about you.
Well, I appreciate that. And that was another reason I wanted to do the show because people have these kind of preconceived notions of like who I am based on what
Hmm.
I did for such a long time on Loser. And I have nothing but respect and I love what I was able to do, but there's so much more to me than that. And I think that people really also got to see my sense of humor and my passion for fashion.
Hmm.
So
And I'll leave you with one last question. We did see last episode you talked about how you wanted to become a Bambi. You're like, I'd like to be a Bambi. Are you a Bambi or no?
I'm forever a Bambi. I'm a Bambi
Yes.
before Bambis were a Bambi. It's like I'm living every queer man's dream. It's like, those girls, I mean, they were awesome. And at that one point when I looked at Nikki and I was like, I want to be a Bambi. And she was like, you are. And so I'm living my best Bambi era right now.
And on that note, I just remembered one more question I wanted to ask you, and has a lot to do with what we saw in this last episode, actually. What was the impression you had of Tom in the castle? It feels like he's running a mile a minute, all these theories. What was your feeling him out?
You know what? Sandoval was always really nice to me throughout the shooting. Like I didn't, and I will say this with peace and love, peace and love. I didn't really know who Sandoval was. I didn't. I've never watched him. I didn't know the scandal. I didn't know
Hmm.
any of this stuff. I just knew him, and there were times where he would talk at the round table and you just get to the point you're just like this girl, you got to just like stop talking, like you got to just like let's wrap this up. And Dolores really made the best comment in the episode last night when she was like, please go ahead and talk because none of it's going to make sense anyway. And I think that said it all for me.
Yeah, it's been a ride because I also came in not knowing him, so this is a lot of first impression for me.
Did you notice him eating like
Oh my
him?
God! What was
I
that?
was like, why is no one talking about this? He's hunched over. He's like, just shoveling this food in his mouth. And there was the episode before where I was like, this, stop eating. Like,
Yeah,
I'm super aware of how people eat because I mean, it's what I do for a living.
right.
But I literally was just like this. What are you doing? I was like, just breathe, exhale, honey.
It was the posture was weird for
It's,
eating. He was standing, but like crane neck, and then I didn't see chewing, Bob. I saw no
yeah,
chewing. It was
it was
just going.
it was primal the way that he was eating.
Yes. Oh my God. Well, Bob, this has
Yeah,
been an absolute delight. I do thank you for giving us your time and all
my
the lovely
pleasure.
answers, and looking forward to see where you end up next.
Thank you, sir.
Take care.